We were on a meeting with a lot of people from the marketing world in the meeting. And because of my bluntness and my directness, like I put her down in terms of something she had said. And she WhatsApped me on the side. Firstly, I'm grateful that she felt like she could do that, right? Because I think a lot of times, and me myself, I'm sure, given my seniority, a lot of people don't feel like they can actually on the side say, nah, that wasn't cool. So she WhatsApped me on the side and said, Khensi, that wasn't cool. Like, I didn't appreciate that and stuff.
Hi guys, welcome back to Braving It. This is a platform where I get to have brave conversations with people who are making big and brave decisions every single day. On the show, we get to unpack those human emotions, the ones that limit us from realizing our full potential. Emotions such as fear, doubt, anxiety, rejection, that imposter syndrome, and ego. So it's my hope that through these conversations, you will begin to get out of your way, you'll begin to brave it, have the courage to face those limitations and unearth your enormity. With me today, I'm sitting with Khensani Nobanda. I'm excited, thrilled. Ooh, girl, I've been waiting. She is currently the group executive for group marketing and corporate affairs at Nedbank.
Yes.
She is also the deputy chairperson of the Nedbank Foundation. So we are in very good hands. Khensi was previously in the employ of global brands like Unilever, SAB, Diageo, Vodacom, to name a few. And she currently has a BCom degree from WITS, having majored in marketing, information systems, as well as an MBA from Gibbs. Well done. Halala Khensi.
Yes.
So this is the part where the crew is supposed to say, hala, but you know, the hate is real. Hey, youth employment, hey. Khensi, welcome to Braving It.
No, man, thank you for having me.
No, man, thank you for saying yes. So you and I were supposed to do this last year,
Yes.
but unfortunately you weren't well at the time.
Yeah.
So thank you for still honoring and following through on the appointment. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you. So, look, we've met before. Now, I don't expect you to remember.
I don't. Like, okay.
We have met before. I'll rejig your memory, but as I said, no expectations here. So we met in 2019.
Okay.
And at the time, my agency was commissioned to come and shoot a promo video of the Nedbank IMC conference leading up to the conference. So it was like a promo video with yourself and a few other marketers in the room, and the conversation was around marketing and social media. And the funny thing is that I didn't know what you looked like, but I knew we were shooting the group exec for Nedbank. So I went to the bathroom and while the guys were setting up, and I lathered my hands in soap, and I was confronted by one of those tabs, you know, those water-saving tabs.
Yeah.
And for the life of me, I was like, do I right-click, double-click, alt-delete, hover over the tab? And I couldn't work the tab. And you walked in, again, I had no idea who you were. You walked in, you were kind, I greeted you, you greeted back, I asked for your help, and you assisted. You were kind, you were humble, you were just so sweet. So you can imagine when I walked back into the room, you were there, and I was like, oh my gosh.
I actually do remember.
Do you remember?
Yeah, we did it in my office, the interview. Yes, I do remember.
Yes. And I was like, oh, thank God I said hello. Can you imagine?
Thank God I was nice.
So on and off camera, you were just amazing. You were consistent, you were authentic.
Thank you.
Now, what's even more amazing is that leading up to this interview, I naturally was digging up, you know, doing a bit of research. And there's a there's quite a few things that you and I have in common.
Okay.
So, unfortunately, like you, 2010, you lost your brother.
Yes, yeah.
2002, I lost my sister, and she was fairly young as well. And also discovered that, obviously, well, I have a marketing background like you. I worked at a telecoms as well.
Okay,
I worked for
fantastic.
MTN.
All right.
Back in the day. I worked with Bully.
Oh,
Yes,
fantastic. One of my marketing execs. Yes.
Exactly. And you speak so fondly of her in your
Yeah.
other interviews. So I worked with Bully as well, quite
Okay,
closely.
lovely.
And what else? Oh, I married in October, the month of October. You got married in October.
Yes, I did.
Which year did you marry?
2019.
Ah, 2011. Wow. So I have to ask, dark chocolate, red wine, or both?
Red wine.
Sister. I'm so glad. That was a simple one. Okay. So, as I said, I've met you before, and you were authentic. You were consistent in your demeanor, both on and off camera. Look, one of the interviews that I listened to where you featured, you said, when I bring Khensi to the table, people fall in love with Khensi. So my question to you is, what are those consistent personality traits that we can expect to receive from you, be it in the boardroom, at a private dinner, at the restaurant? Who can we expect to meet?
I think firstly, like when you say consistent personality traits, one of my drivers in life and my foundation is I don't change. So whether you meet me with my friends, with my family, at work, at Exco, with the board, this is me. And I just very funnily, I had a meeting with one of our board members today, and I had one of the Nedbank backgrounds, and he was like, oh, the last time you had the Game of Thrones throne, like with our board and stuff.
Yeah.
I love Game of Thrones, and most people would think, well, who would put the background of the Game of Thrones throne? But I actually made a decision a couple of years ago that how you experience me is always going to be the same. So it's my energy, like you'll always experience me just, the same, to be honest, unless I'm obviously in a bad mood and stuff. But generally how I come across, my frankness and bluntness, like some people find that maybe a bit more difficult, but I tend to address things head on, even in my family, even at work, and just say what, I want to say. I think so, being very frank. What else would you expect? I think my passion, whether it's for life, it's for wine, it's for my job and our brand, Nedbank, you'll generally also experience me like in very much, the same way. What else can I say? I think fundamentally for me, I don't do this thing of the personality that you see at work at Nedbank is a different personality to the one that you see socially. Because I found that whenever I've done that, it's actually just, I feel like I'm losing a little bit of my soul. Like whenever I have to like show up in a particular way. And like I said in that interview that you're speaking about, I find that I do my best work when I bring my authentic self, fully me to the table. And most people tend to actually connect to that and my story and what I'm trying to do versus trying to be something else.
I love that you touched on authenticity and work. I find that there's usually quite a conundrum in the workplace where people have a job and then they have their purpose, their calling. And often people aren't able to marry the two. It's usually, I'm going to pursue my purpose as a side hustle, so that I can live out my life's work, but I need the job to keep me, sane in terms of bills and just finances. So very few people are able to marry those. Have you been able to live out your purpose in the job that you occupy on a day-to-day?
Absolutely. And I'm extremely lucky. One, I love marketing. I don't want to do anything else. I have career conversations with our CEO, with our COO, where they say, would you like to go into more the business sort of running, one of the business units at Nedbank? And no, I want to stay in marketing, That's actually for me where my passion lies, because I really think brands are such a powerful and play such a powerful role in people's lives. But I think for me, the last 3 years have been even more powerful if I think of the brand I work on, which is Nedbank. I actually truly believe in the purpose that Nedbank stands for, which is to help people manage their money better. If I look at my own situation and how I've not managed my money better, if I look at my family, and you just look at general in South Africa, how people manage their money, I have a very big connection to that purpose. And I truly believe it. So whenever we do work for the brand or for the bank, I'm like, I'm doing powerful work here that's actually changing people's relationships with money, people's money habits. I think the second thing, still based in my marketing world, is I decided a couple of years ago that I wanted to play a bigger role in growing Black female marketeers. So again, every day I feel like I'm doing that. I look at three of the marketing executives in the bank who report to me. They're Black females, and beyond just Nedbank, the things I agree to do in terms of mentorship, in terms of some of the webinars I agree to go on, who I agree to speak with. A lot of times, I do give my time, but I particularly give my time to Black women because I really just want to see successful Black women in the marketing world. So maybe for a long time, I was doing what I love from a marketing perspective. I do feel like in the last 3 years, because I clarified for myself, exactly the impact I wanted to make from a marketing perspective. But also I chose, when Nedbank called me to say, we'd like you to come work for us, I did a little bit of research about their brand positioning, and I said, this is actually what I want to do, and I want to be a big part of this journey.
Wow.
So yeah.
So thank you for saying yes to this, because I feel like I'm empowered. I feel like you looked at this and you're like, who's Lorette? Okay, she sounds Black. She's a woman. She's a woman, so yes, I'm going to do this. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So still talking about corporates and the roles that we can all occupy and play in people's lives, they usually say the higher you go, the hotter it gets. And that projection, that heat is projected from top down, yeah? So you manage lots of people, lots and lots of people. Some report into you, some indirectly. Have you ever been confronted with a situation where a subordinate rightfully calls you out? And did you, one, accept it? Or two, did your ego get in the way of you having a divine learning experience?
I love that question. And I think for a long time, my ego would have come in the way, but I'll just give an example. Last year, and I'll mention her name, Tatiana, who's our head of media.
Okay.
We were on a meeting with a lot of people from the marketing world in the meeting. And because of my bluntness and my directness, I put her down in terms of something she had said. And she WhatsApped me on the side. Firstly, I'm grateful that she felt like she could do that, right? Because I think a lot of times, and me myself, I'm sure, given my seniority, a lot of people don't feel like they can actually on the side say, nah, that wasn't cool. So she WhatsApped me on the side and said, Khensi, that wasn't cool. I didn't appreciate that and stuff. And I then on the call, so because I had bruised her on the call, I wanted to make the amends on the call with everyone there. And when I got the message from her, I just thought, first, and actually then I go to, and I'm right. Really, I'm unhappy about what I'm seeing.
That
and
mental chatter with yourself.
So I'm having this conversation. I'm unhappy with what I'm seeing, and I must be able to tell her in front of other people. Why must I not, And then as all of that is going on in my head, I'm thinking, but I think the way you did it is actually was uncalled for. So I literally then on the call said, and I actually just want to apologize to Tatiana because, and I mentioned, I shouldn't have done that. And what was so powerful is, and we were on a virtual call, but it changed the energy in the room. Because actually, I think when I had done that to Tatiana, the energy in the room went quite negative, to be honest. And when and then other people are like, yeah, but really Khensi, you were like, rough, And it builds, I think, a narrative that I open myself up for feedback like that. And it was important for me that, like I say, I make the amends on the call and not privately, so people understand that I am open to that feedback. But I can't say it was easy even for me. Like I tell you, the mental journey I had to go through. Really, why? And I'm right. Well, Tatiana, okay, wait.
Hold on. This is
yeah. So and I've had a couple of examples like that where I've had to just manage myself actually. And I always say one of the questions someone once asked me is, how do you manage so many people? And I said, I manage myself. That's how I manage so many people. Because the only person I can control is myself, my emotions, how I show up, and if I can control that in a way that is positive and inspirational and, for my team and the people I work with, then that's how I manage them and lead them. But I certainly cannot control them in terms of, how they respond and all of that. The only person I can manage is actually myself.
And has it ever been the other way around where you call out to your senior?
Yeah, and that's part of it, I guess, my bluntness, right? That can be problematic. And but I've got a great style. So I'm also very self-aware. So I'm very comfortable with saying what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. One of the things is my style, and you can imagine at a bank, right, where people are much more formal. My style is very much like, informal, like cool, blah, blah, blah. But I'm saying, hey, boss, I'm not happy with that and stuff. And he laughs and he goes, okay, Khensi, I get that,
Yes,
Oh, I'll say, oh, my boss is ignoring me and I'll say it on a call.
Oh, okay.
And everyone
But
go,
it sinks in.
but it sinks
Yes,
in,
yes,
So I
yes.
fortunately, I have a style that does that. And yeah, like they take it on. I think, both Mike and Mfundo, like my bosses, have had to learn, like, the type of person that I am and stuff.
Yes.
Like I remember, so I walk into the boardroom, and if you see our big executive boardroom at Nedbank, I mean, where you sit is a whole thing, like, I'll get there and sit with my legs under me, like in a yoga pose almost, or, whatever.
Wow.
And everyone's like, that's not really how you sit in the boardroom. Like, does it impact what I'm going to say? Like, and, what the impact I'm going to make in the room and stuff. So, yeah, fortunately, I use my style to be able to manage upwards.
Beautiful. Sure, but it has to come, I think it comes with a lot of confidence that you must have.
Absolutely.
You must own your role, your space, your life, I
Absolutely,
suppose, and not make any excuses for who you are
Absolutely.
and how you show up.
I decided years ago that I wasn't going to make excuses for who I am.
So you're an avid reader.
Yeah.
You love reading and you promote reading. So I came across an article. I remember it was about leadership. And in it they said yesterday, leadership was about the muscle. Today, leadership is about the brain. Tomorrow, leadership will be about the heart. And obviously, there's been many iterations of this. People today talk about the 3 brains of leadership, the head brain, the heart brain, the gut brain. So my question to you is what does the philosophy of servant leadership look like for you as it relates to employees, power, training, empathy? What does that look like in terms of serving your employees?
So, I mean, maybe firstly, from a contextual perspective, I do think that COVID showed that actually female leaders are a superpower on their own. Because if you think of how empathetic we had to be to our teams last year, how understanding we had to be, which is something sometimes women are, they look at it as a weakness when we become emotional or empathetic or whatever. They say, women are weak and whatever. Actually, we've got a superpower and we should be incredibly proud of it. And I realized last year, given what my team was going through, when I would speak to someone or call them and they've had a loss or they're just struggling, like they live alone, and because of COVID and lockdown, they can't interact with anyone, is don't just say, well, just get on with it, but like be empathetic and really try to understand how you can help that person. So I think that was a powerful lesson for me last year around how all the things that sometimes as women we get told they're negative are actually superpowers. Specifically, I think over a long time, one of the things I've been clear about is that if you're in my team, I want to make sure that your career progresses. Okay. So one of the ways I always show up for the people in my team is when we have discussions around remuneration, when we have discussions around career progression, when those type of discussions. I am number one fan of my team in terms of like making sure that those conversations are powerful for them. And sometimes I even give them tips on the side that they're going to come like challenge me, right? Like I say to them, with bonuses, for example, if you guys as a group of friends don't discuss what bonus you got, like companies will cheat you. The way I found out that actually I could get much higher bonuses, much higher pay, was speaking to a guy friend of mine and going, you're paid that much. Hey guys, I feel like there's something wrong here.
Like, he divulged how much he paid.
So I talk about how much I earn. Like if someone, like I'll tell people my bonus, my salary, my shares and all of, because one, I could be helping you, right? In terms of making sure that you get more money and all of that. Or I could be helping myself because you might look at me and go, oh, shame, I was like.
But would they tell you is what I'm thinking.
I hope so. So I always say to them, I give them tips around the negotiation. And I always say like, the worst thing that can happen is they can say no to you. You'll still earn the same salary, the same bonus, the same, the best thing that can happen is you actually get an increase or you get more, right? So rather just say what you want. So definitely in the context of just making sure that I give them tips on how to even challenge me back on their own career journey, on their own remuneration journey, I think is important. I think part of servant leadership for me as well is making myself available. It's very difficult because I look after transformation, CSI, marketing and market research. So my diary is insane sometimes. But one of the things I really try to do, whether it's WhatsApp, is just make myself available. Because it's just some people just need a quick conversation with you to help them really just like, okay, what's next? What can I do? Or just, quick things. So definitely make myself available. Yeah, and I would say just also bringing myself authentically. I always feel like it gives them permission to be their authentic self, whatever that is. And obviously we're all very different and all of that. But I hope that they can see that they don't have to be a different person in the organization. They can actually bring themselves authentically and they'll be fine and they'll be successful.
Sure. Given the many caps that you were actually talking about now, CSI, market research, etc., I was thinking about how obviously in a role like that, you have to grace many stages.
Yeah.
When you talk about empowerment, how you empower your staff and being there for them, you obviously have to step up on stages and continue to do that at a much larger, to a much larger audience rather. So when you grace these stages, when you present yourself in boardrooms and sit in that yoga style, there's several people, there's many people, some of them are experts, some of them non-experts. Do you still get that sick feeling in your stomach?
Oh my God, yes.
Of anxiety. Call it days before, Khensi, moments before. Does it happen to you, the palpitations? And how do you silence that commotion that is happening inside of you? Because there's lots of expectations. I mean, you are occupying all these roles and people think you are the head honcho.
Yeah.
You clearly must be bringing something brand new and different and powerful. How do you silence that commotion that is happening?
So I think first the answer is yes. And I think it's good, by the way, because I think it keeps me on my toes. Because I think the moment I don't have those butterflies, maybe I must move on or do something else and stuff. So the fact that it still happens to me shows that I'm doing something that's challenging me. So I think that's like maybe the first thing. But the thing that I learned, and I learned it from a guy who played a big role in my career, Kees Kruithof. I used to watch him. He was the MD of Unilever South Africa. And I would watch him in presentations, just come across off the cuff, this ain't a thing, whatever. And I spoke to him and I said, Kees, wow, you're amazing, blah, blah, blah. And he said to me, actually, what looks like an off-the-cuff speech or just very relaxed, I have practiced more than 10 times. So preparation is so key. So if I know that I've got like a big presentation, interview for the, whatever it is and stuff, I actually prep for it. And whilst my style seems chill, off the cuff, actually I've prepped for it and stuff. So I think people don't realize the power of doing that, because at least you have subject knowledge in what you're going to be talking about to be able to calm your nerves. The second thing is I actually have to remind myself, and it's important that you do, that I'm really fucking good at my job. So I have to just remind myself, because it's so easy to listen to the negative voices and and all of that, and actually part of reminding myself. So I'm a person who I react to. I need external stimuli. So if I'm presenting somewhere and people are smiling at me and nodding, I get like, I'm doing well. Yeah. If people are just like sitting there, I lose my confidence, my train of thought. I'm like now all over the place. Everything I've prayed for just goes out of the window. So I've had to teach myself to be in stillness on what I have prepped for, remind myself that I'm really good at my job, and remind myself that sometimes I may get disagreement from the people I'm talking to. It doesn't mean I don't know what I'm doing, doesn't mean I don't understand my job. It's just what it is at that moment. So and I've built that over time. Hey, it's really not been easy. Just like being still in not needing the external stimulation that I normally need to feel like I'm doing a good job.
I was listening to an interview with Elizabeth Gilbert, the author of Eat, Pray, Love, and she speaks about one of the TED Talks that she did. It was watched millions of times. And she said she's had many raving reviews about that talk, about how she was just such a natural, about how she was brilliant and articulate and all of these wonderful things. And she said people don't know that I had been rehearsing the presentation 6 months prior to showing up at the TED Talk. And that hit me so hard, because I do a lot of public speaking. And I don't think I've ever afforded, number one, I don't even get 6 months notice, So you work with whatever little time you have. But it was just so amazing that, someone of that caliber who you would expect to just be able to wing it after 3 days of preparation. She was like, never, no ways. It was 6 months of just me doing this day and night,
No, it's
day
absolutely.
and night, recording herself on a recorder
And
just
watch, yeah, and like critique and where can I improve. My poor husband has to like have, in fact, my IMC speech that year, my poor husband had to listen to it so many times. And he was like, and I mean, he's an advocate. So some of the things he's like, yeah, but I don't understand what you're saying. It's marketing speak.
Like, oh,
yeah, you know. Like,
let me have this. Wow. My husband, no, he won't let me. So I use the kids.
I love it.
One is 1.5 and the other is 6.
Just like, we don't know what is going on here.
But they just sit there and they take it, you know. I was studying, Khensi, the trajectory of your career. And when I look at it and when I hear you talk about it, it reminds me of the notion that says a bud is not less whole than its blossom. Meaning that you've always had the confidence that you had the potential. You could become anything. You had no choice but only to flower and to blossom.
Oh, I love that.
You were an assistant brand manager right at the beginning of your career. You then made it to brand manager, Rama. And then you became a brand manager for Smirnoff, and then marketing manager for Smirnoff. And at the age of 25, guys, this woman became category director for tea categories at Unilever.
Yes.
And then at 29, you were then heading up these skincare portfolios across Africa, Middle East, and Turkey. At 29 years old, look, at 25, I was still assistant brand manager, but as Kolapo, you know, each to their lane. We are not comparing. But that is why I say this, and I can't help but think to myself, with all of that, with all of those accomplishments, to whom much is given, so much more is required. What type of, you know, storms did you have to weather, you know, that came with those different promotions? Because like I said, to whom much is given, so much more is required. And so much more was required from you at such an early age. What did you have to weather?
Yeah, it was, I mean, I think firstly, like on the, just how quickly my career progressed, I have to say again, it's one of those things. When I started at Unilever as a Rama assistant brand manager, and my friends can tell you, I told them that I would be a director before 30. And everyone was like, ha, ha, ha. And well, it happened. But it wasn't an easy journey. So I'll talk about, in fact, when I became category director for tea. I think what was difficult for me was managing a team of people who some were my age or older and some had like more experience than me. And I think firstly I was 25, and the thing I had to learn actually the most was this whole point about managing myself. I had like, because my energy is such that when I'm in a good mood and I'm in a room or a meeting, generally that room is in a good mood, and you know, and all of that. If I'm in a lousy, like foul mood, like the energy in the room is like that. Even when I was like junior, you know, so it's not just from a leadership perspective. Now you can imagine I'm now a leader of people, and I just walk into meetings in a bad mood, like, you know, like just not managing myself, man. Like I was actually stroppy, man, really, like. And I was fortunate enough that I had a leader, Harm, who gave me very clear and direct feedback and said to me, at this level now, you can't be the stroppy young girl who just acts up and, you know, all of that. You actually have to manage your emotions and stuff. And it was such powerful feedback because, I mean, initially I also did the same Khensi thing of like, oh, whatever, like, I don't know what this guy is saying. But I decided to actually like look at it and, you know, and I sort of thought, yeah, he's actually right, you know. And that's when I started to really manage my emotions a lot better and a lot well. And it stood me in good stead, like over time in terms of my own career, but also personally, because by the way, I used to do that to my friends, my poor friends. I don't know how they stood to be friends with me because I was actually moody and all of those things. You know what I mean, you know? So I think that was like a really good lesson at a very young age in terms of this whole thing about managing myself. But too, like I said, in terms of managing, you know, I had a friend who, when I joined Unilever, was ahead of me, and they were my buddy to introduce me to Unilever. All of a sudden, I'm their boss. And it didn't help that, like, they were a white female, and it would happen, like, so with our agencies and all of that, our agencies would come into meetings, and they would just talk to her, you know, like she's the leader of the team. And I would just sit there. So I'm thinking, yes, I am the boss in this room. But in the agencies, as a matter, but they just ignore you. You know, you're just sitting there, and all these things like are just going on in your head. And she loved it because actually, by the way, she was giving me so many problems. Like, it was just like, she did not want to report to me. She was just like, this is just, So I actually sat her down and I said, listen, I actually also don't want you to report to me. Let me be clear. But this is where we are. And if you want to be successful, I can tell you that it's not going to happen without me being successful. So our fates are completely tied to each other. So you have to step up out of this thing that you're in right now, and start to see how we can make this work and make the brands that we're working on be successful. Because then you and I are both going to be successful, and maybe then you're not going to work for me, right? Like, so because and it really, just being that frank and direct in that conversation, I think really helped our relationship to the extent that however many years later, we're actually friends. We were able to get through that. But I've also had, like, when I started in Dubai, so looking after the skin category for Africa, Middle East, and Turkey, I mean, firstly, I was, 28, 29 years old, and I would walk into markets where I'm having to deal with MDs of those countries, and some of them were, just arrogant. But I mean, specifically, if I look at Saudi Arabia, so the marketing team in Saudi Arabia was obviously male, and here was I, like a black woman, and the category then was not doing well, to be honest. And they actually they treated me like shit, me and my team, just like undermining everything we said, like almost looking at it and saying like, no, you're not going to achieve, and just like looking down on me. So I looked at it and thought, okay, cool. Again, who's the person you can manage in this situation? It's not them, it's myself. So I went to my team and I said, what's the biggest issue that the Saudi team have right now? And we had removed the Lux white bar. It's a long story that I'm not going to get into. And because of that, like, the market share from a skin cleansing perspective with Lux was declining. So I said, we bring back that bar, and let's just focus on that, and we bring it back quickly. We'll grow market share. We'll change the perceptions of us. And that's what we did. So again, that was all I could manage. I couldn't manage the expectations. I couldn't manage what they thought of me. I could only do that through actually doing some really good work that changed the trajectory of their business and stuff. So it's just never been easy, but like, it's just one of those things where I really was lucky that I became a category director at 25, because I do think how I was set up through in terms of my boss Harm, in terms of the coaching that I received and all of that, helped me for future for some of the bigger roles that I got.
Sure. When you talk about just the resistance that you received, it prompts me to ask the question about, was there ever a time, and I suppose there was, but I just want you to expand a little bit on that, where the risk it took to stay tightly bound in a bud was far more painful than the risk it took to blossom? Meaning that, you staying tightly in that situation was actually, the worst thing that you could possibly do to yourself. And how did you work up the courage, the guts to just go, because you just needed to go?
So it was, I think probably into my third year working in Dubai with Unilever, I had the shittiest boss anyone can ever have. I can tell you, like, it was just rough. And when I reflect back now, what was driving him was his ambition. He's not like a bad guy. And actually, from a casual perspective and all of that, him and I could drink wine and, great guy. He's Argentinian. I like Argentinian. So we could connect. But as a Unilever, senior vice president, he had very big ambitions. And in those ambitions, he couldn't see the impact of some of what he required of his teams, of me and my team, what his expectations were, and how he gave feedback when those things were not going well, and how he helped or supported or didn't help and support in that journey. So I was taking in a lot of strain and pressure. And actually what happened is I came home and I told, my brother was still alive then because it was in 2010. And I told my brother Alex, and I said to him, oh my God, I really hate my job. Like, and you know what would happen? I mean, an ad of mine would come on air, like, and I would fast forward it. I couldn't stand to look at any of the work we were doing. That's, like, I hated it. And my brother said to me, he was 19, he's like, just quit your job. I was like, yeah, Bandla. Like, this guy, you don't just quit your job just like that. Life doesn't work like that, And he's like, yeah, but you're so unhappy. When we do see you, you're just like talking about this guy, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I think maybe it was actually, I think, just beginning of the World Cup when I
Yeah.
came home and we'd had this conversation. I came back for the finals and he
Yeah.
passed away that weekend.
Sure.
And it hit me really hard because he was like 19 years old, like very young and stuff. And then starting to think about, oh my goodness, like I'm in this world where, you know, you talk about like in my back, like it was like I was a robot. I was just trying, and not even a robot, actually, just because there was so much pain in me, so much uncertainty. I went from this very confident category director at 25 to someone who was like almost a former shell of themselves, like just everything I did. Because my first 18 months in Dubai, I had another boss. So he was like a boss who then come on afterwards.
Okay.
So my first 18 months, I'm like doing well.
Bliss.
All of a sudden, I'm just this like shell of my former self and stuff. My team can see it, my agencies can see it, you know, all the global teams that I work with. But you're just trying to like just get through every day. You know, when you wake up and you're like, I don't want to go to work. Like, I don't know if my body just, I can't go to work and stuff. So when he passed away, I was like, I can't live a life like that and then die. Like, that cannot be it. Like, that just can't be my life. So, and it took me a little bit of time because I had to like, also, you know, you live a particular lifestyle.
Yeah.
I mean, at that time, you're flying like with work, you're flying business class, you're buying Dolce & Gabbana dresses. You think, yo, guys, I can't quit my job. How does that work and stuff, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But in November, in 2010, I just said, I'm out. And I quote, and Unilever actually said to me, because obviously they knew my brother had passed away, so they said to me, why don't you take a sabbatical? And then when you're ready, you can come back. I said, actually, I'm so out. I don't know if I want to do marketing. I don't know if I even want to work. I don't know, guys. Like, I don't even want to, you know, when you've got this thing of, like, here's my job. Because always, like, if I'm between jobs, I'm already thinking about the next one, right?
Yes.
I didn't want that for myself because I don't want to think about the new brand or whatever.
I want to vegetate.
I don't want to vegetate. So I literally quit. I traveled for a little bit. Like, I went to Ethiopia. I climbed the Simeon Mountains there. You know, just, I mean, I remember that summit and thinking it was just the hardest physical thing I've ever had to do in my life. I went to Syria and Jordan on my own. Like, my mom was like, please stop going to places that are on CNN because it was around the time of Arab Spring. Me, I'm gallivanting there, like in Syria and stuff. And then I came home and I moved in with my parents. I hadn't lived with my parents since I'd like basically left for varsity and stuff and had no car. I would go out with my friends and they'd be like, we love bubbles. And at that time, MCC wasn't big. At least now, you know, kid drink MCC and it's all good. So it's like champagne. So I was like, oh, let's have champagne. I was like, you guys, I can't afford it. Like, but I had fantastic friends who were like, no, we'll buy it for you. And I loved it. I loved it. I was able to commit to actually what I wanted in the future. One was, actually, I love marketing and I want to continue to work in marketing. But the only way I can do that is in a way that is authentic and true to myself. And I had to clarify what that would look like. So that's part of saying I have to bring myself to work. If I walk barefoot in the office, if that's problematic, then I mustn't work here. And I've had, by the way, like situations after that where I've been in an organization that I'm not going to mention where I didn't feel like that was working out for me and I left because I'm now very clear what works and doesn't work for me because I took that break. And also clear that if things don't work out, I'm going back to my parents, right? So that gave me a sense of, now I'm going home. Like, this life, it's okay, no shame. And now when I got married, I said to my husband, I'm going home to you. Like, you're going to just have to look after the two of us, you know? So I've got that instilled in me that I live a great life and I love my life.
Beautiful.
But I will not allow that to put me in a situation of just the anxiety. Do you know, every morning when you wake up, then there's a pillar on you and you're anxious.
I know it.
And I was like, that's not going to happen to me again. So, yeah.
Wow, you are the perfect person for this show because it really is about braving it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's looking at your situation and saying, you know what, I'm going to brave it and walk away.
Yeah.
And whatever was waiting for me on the other side, I will deal with it there.
Yeah.
But the only way that I will know what's on the other side is if I go to the other
side. I have to get out of this.
Yeah.
And I was like, again, like I got a phone call from SAB while I was on my break to say, we hear you're on a break, you don't have a job, would like you to, you know, to come work for us. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Then the marketing director was like, let's have coffee. And I had coffee and I really liked him. And then I said, yeah, but not now. I'll see you guys. You know, like just, and that's what happens, right? When you just surrender, you know? And then I called him a month before I'd agreed to start. And I said, I'm running out of money. Can I start? I already wasn't earning any income, but the little that I had was like, so I said, no, I need to start. And And I was, so it's been an incredible journey for me that I really, I mean, obviously losing my brother was earth shattering, but I do think, the lesson that it gave to me, I embraced. And as painful as it was, and it took me a couple of months to get that lesson to say, I can't live my life like this.
Sure. Wow, 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 wow. I'm almost sad because we have to wrap this show. But you and I will always, always, always catch up. And I hope to catch up more after the cameras, have shut down. But group executive today, what do you intentionally and bravely plan to pursue tomorrow?
Yeah. Wow. What a difficult question. You know what it is? And I'll be very honest. I think I'm in such a serene space that normally my life is always about the next. And because, I am ambitious, in that way. But I'm in such a space that I'm comfortable. I'm not even thinking about, so much of that. I guess, for me, it's just more about continuing to authentically live my truth and, who I am and never lose that piece of me, because it's very easy. I mean, I'm now 2.5 years into the group exco role, and it's easy to assimilate and just be like, well, I'm going to be like every other exco member and all of that. So I think for me, it's to continue to do that. I definitely want to make Nedbank an amazing brand in South Africa, not just an amazing banking brand and stuff. So, in terms of what we want to achieve with the brand, and I want to be one of the best marketeers in South Africa. So part of that is just, really being brave in the work that we do, in how we live the brand's purpose and everything, because I actually want to be an impactful marketeer. I want to be looked at and people say that she was one of the best marketeers we had in the country, So that's part of, just being, I guess thoughtful more in my career without looking at, okay, I want to work for that brand or that job or whatever. Is it in my current role? How do I make a big impact for the brand itself, but also for myself? Because I do want to be one of the best marketeers that the country has seen.
Wow, that's awesome. That is awesome. Okay, so who else would you like to see braving it next? Is there any particular person you'd like to nominate to come through and have this type of conversation?
So maybe a creative that I work with, who's one of our executive creative directors from Joe Public, Xolisa Deshana.
Oh, I know Xolisa, but I don't know him personally, but I know of him.
I just think the journey, he's been on in terms of being one of the top one of the top creatives in South Africa, and is a black guy, right? And some of the decisions he's probably had to make. And pretty recently, him and, I think it is Kutala Mpume owning, a share of Joe Public, the agency that they've worked on for many years. I'd love to understand, part of that journey and what it's been for him. Yeah.
Will you hook me up?
Yeah. Okay. I'm his client, as he always says.
Yes, then it's done.
He always says, oh, my esteemed client.
Then it's a mandate. Khensi, thank you so much. This has been awesome. And once again, thank you for making time. I know you are hectic, but here you are. Thank you.
No, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you. Wow, guys, this has been so much fun. I hope you learned as much as I did. And I hope it's been worth your while. As I said, be brave, brave it, get out of your own way, start to live your life, unearth your enormity. Please share your comments with us. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching.